That picture of you was at 2020 All-Star Weekend of you next
Oh
to
yeah,
what
yeah,
Quavo, was that Two Chains, Spike Lee. Can you share with
yeah,
us this experience of this picture and I guess like its meaning to you and those that you're around, those black leaders in the black community?
yeah. So yeah, it's funny because that was like the All Star before COVID,
Mm-hmm.
before everything, and like that picture was like everywhere.
Yeah. Yo, 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 what's up, y'all? It's your boy Ian Chang, and you are listening to another episode of The Open Court. If you're new around here, this is a podcast that covers a number of topics in the sports industry, including social issues, influential research, and leaders impacting the world. Today's episode focuses on the lack of racial minorities in leadership positions in the sports management and business industry. So quickly grab a snack and a drink and join me as we dive into this controversial topic that will hold much of the sports industry's future. Before we get into any research, let's take a look at what the sports industry really is, right? So the sports industry consists of a very wide and broad range of services that come together to produce sports. According to IGI Global, the sports industry can be defined as the market with an economic dimension which offers products, services, places, and ideas related to sport, fitness, or leisure time to its consumers. So, looking at this, an important aspect of the sports industry is the management, leadership, and business that overarches much of the fabrication that we see. Furthermore, I would like to really focus on the inequality of racial minorities that fill these management and leadership positions in the sports industry. Alright, so let's take a little history lesson now. African American management can date back to the early 1900s to 1930s. It was during this time that historian Dr. Juliet Walker called it the golden age of black business. Many influential African American entrepreneurs have made great impacts in the black community, but a major black entrepreneur that I like to look at that can be considered the father of African American management is Charles Clinton Spalding. During the years 1900 to 1952, Charles Clinton Spalding managed the North Carolina Mutual Insurance Company. During that time, it was considered America's largest black business. From a young age, Spalding was taught by his father that succeeding in America could only be achieved by sweat, thrift, and enterprise. This type of mindset helped him map out his journey through life to becoming a successful businessman and leader in the United States and black community. So, as a leader of the North Carolina Mutual Insurance Company, Charles Clinton Spalding created a father figure style relationship with those he worked with, right? He wasn't thinking of them as just a boss, but more of a family. In doing so, Spalding helped the mutual maintain a cooperative, advantage work environment. Now, according to the MIT Sloan Management Review, a cooperative advantage is defined as the benefits that an organization possesses and accrues due to its people-centered approach to engendering a spirit of care in the community, meaningful dialogue, and consensus building for both the benefit of employees, customers, and community. So, Spalding created an environment where all his employees felt wanted and cared for. Additionally, Spalding built Mutual to promote professionalism, which as well resulted in him giving rewards to employees for having such a professional behavior. We'd all like that, huh, right? Throughout his time being an example leader in the black community, Spalding set examples of how African Americans and minorities can too manage and lead organizations and businesses. Now let's see how this connects to the sports industry. In order for minorities to gain opportunities to be managers and leaders of successful organizations and businesses, they first need to have opportunities to work in these positions, right? In the sports industry, there are numerous leadership and management positions throughout the teams and organizations that make up each sport league. Although there are many opportunities to obtain these positions, there are very few people in these positions that are part of minority races. Many of these positions are filled by white people. In the National Football League, also known as the NFL, out of the 32 teams around the US, there are only two minority NFL owners. They are Shahid Khan, a Pakistani American, and Kim Pagula, who is Asian American. In the Major League Baseball, MLB, out of 30 teams around the US, there are only two who are of minority races, and they are Lloyd McClendon, an African American, and Freddie Gonzalez, a Latino. Now, the NBA, which is my favorite league out of all, has been the most progressive towards having diversity in their leadership positions. Currently, among the 30 NBA teams, there are four majority owners who are minorities and four women who have team ownership positions. There are 10 black general managers, one Latino president of basketball operations, and one Asian general manager. As you can see, the NBA is making efforts towards diversity, but out of 30 teams, these are very small numbers for what can really be seen in the future. So through these statistics, in three of the major leagues of the sports industry, the ratio of minority race leaders are far less than the number of leadership positions that are held by white people. In all these major leagues of sports, NFL, MLB, and the NBA, the players have much diversity in race. In fact, according to Richard Lapchick, during the 2020 NBA season, 74.2% of the players identified as being black. This is not the case in management and business leadership positions. Much of this can be due to racial ideology. Research scholar Elena A. Simpkins defines racial ideology as the ideas and beliefs that people use to give meaning to skin color and evaluate people. Furthermore, she says that racial ideologies are used to place individuals in racial categories that are tied to assumptions about character traits and abilities. As a result of the subconscious racial ideology mindset that people have, having whiteness makes you privileged and depreciates other races and ethnicities. So Simpkins goes on to add that based on the prevalence of this racial ideology, whiteness became the norm and the standard by which leadership was determined, defined, and celebrated. The privileges associated with whiteness from racial ideology cause people to falsely believe that whiteness is strongly connected to regularity. Now, as a result of the lack of diversity and racial ideology that occurs in the sports management industry, there are numerous negative effects that additionally discourage people of minority races filling leadership roles. One repercussion of this is inequality in the workplace towards minorities. In workplaces, people of minority races may be given jobs that are not of the fit they were seeking. In a scholarly journal called Biased Against Latina and African American Women Job Applicants, a field experiment, George Cunningham elaborates on this by saying, when they do obtain access to jobs in the sports industry, racial minority administrators and coaches are routinely placed in peripheral positions based on racist stereotypes, such as the belief that racial minorities are better suited to recruit players than guide the strategic operations of a unit. This is mind-blowing to me. Rather than placing racial minorities in positions of leadership that they are well suited to take, people who are hiring for these positions are placing them in positions that they might not be interested in. The racial ideology in people is just causing them to think that minorities don't fit the standard stereotype of what leaders or organizations and companies are supposed to be like, predominantly white males of American descent. Due to this inequality in the workplace towards minorities, there is a major lack of diversity in the sports administrations in the sports industry, thus lower numbers of minorities filling positions of leadership. A research report done by the Institute for Diversity and Ethics in Sports at the University of Central Florida found that there is very little diversity in athletic leadership positions at 130 colleges and universities that make up the NCAA D1 football bowl subdivision. Three statistics from this report that really put into perspective the lack of racial diversity in leadership positions are what I'm about to say. According to this research report, white men held 72.3% of the 130 presidential positions. Additionally, more than 87% of faculty athletics representatives were white. Furthermore, white men held 9 of the 10 FBS conference commissioner positions. In all of these statistics, white men fill the great majority of leadership positions in D1 football. If this occurs at the collegiate level of athletic competition, imagine what it's like on professional levels of competition in sports. Although there is major underrepresentation for minorities in leadership positions in the sports industry, there are programs that are continually helping create more diversity across management in sports. First, the NCAA has created programs for students interested in pursuing higher education and career in athletic administration. This program takes place at the NCAA quarters, where student interns are provided with on-job experience and networking opportunities. This program helps increase minority representation in the sports industry. Additionally, according to Alexandra Salas Rojas, the program addresses the critical shortage of senior level minorities who are involved in the athletic programs. Through programs like the ones the NCAA offers to students, the NCAA is striving to identify minorities who aspire to hold high leadership positions in the sports industry and furthermore involve them in opportunities where they can get various senior management level positions and experience. As I go into my freshman year studying sports management at the University of Michigan, I'm curious about what U of M does to aid their students of minority races as they transition to a career in the sports industry. The university has associations and student groups such as the Sports Business Association and the Michigan Sports Business Conference. But I'm really wondering, do these two associations truly help students of color have the same opportunities as their white peers? To get a better first-hand look at what U of M does to help students get a head start in their sports industry careers, I have Javon Shell on with me right now on the podcast to ask him some questions about his experience at U of M. What I kind of ask you some stuff is about, I would say, your time at U of M. What at U of M or what programs and experiences aided you positively or negatively impacted your transition to the sports industry and working with the Cavs and such like that?
Yeah. So originally, when I went to UMich, I wanted to study law.
Yeah.
And so I heavily invested in that. I really got into doing that. And obviously, you're there now. UMich is just, it's funny because I was talking about this too with one of my frat brothers. UMich, will have you feel that first semester or so, rock you. Because you're the smartest person in high school. But when you get to UMich, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, I feel that.
This is hard.
Yeah.
So, honestly, that's one of the things that kind of knocked me off a little bit of law, because I was just like, wow, this is what I want to do, but one, it's super hard here. Two, most of the lawyers I know just weren't happy with their jobs.
Yeah.
And three, I went to this conference or something up there. I forgot what conference it was up there. And so this kind of helped me make my decision to shift towards sports. And the speaker was kind of just I think a lot of people, they choose their career based on, monetary gain and all these different things, which was the sole reason, honestly, why I wanted to go into law. I wasn't thinking about, wanting to make a difference in the system and all that stuff. It was literally because it was money focused.
Yeah.
And so he's like, do something that you want to wake up every day and, you enjoy to do. And I was like, well, what is that? And I was like, what is that for me? And I was like, well, that's sports.
Okay.
So once I heard that, I was like, okay, so what at UMich can I do to get involved in sports? So I applied to Big Ten Network, the campus. We have a little satellite campus up there or whatever. They have one. I got denied my first time, which was a real gut punch. But they ended up accepting me, and I ended up working at Big Ten Network up there at Michigan.
Okay.
So I did everything from camera production, replay, and then going into my ending my junior year, going into my senior year, they started letting me commentate games.
Yeah.
And so I would commentate basketball, soccer, all these different sports, just talking about sports. And that's genuinely what I love to do. So it was all about Big Ten was a huge factor in that. I did a couple other orgs. I was kind of in Maze Rangers, obviously with the basketball team. I did a few other things. I was friends with a couple of the athletes too. So those are some of the things that kind of got me on the track to kind of get on sports. But the sole reason straight up was Big Ten Network. Big Ten Network kind of opened it up for me, and I was like, wow, This is especially when I heard myself on TV for the first time, like
Yeah.
commentating the game. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And it's interesting because like I wanted to go into like broadcasting. That was my focus. But now I do like digital content marketing, which is, you know, it's different, but I'm still in sports. I deal with content. So it's still something I still enjoy to do. So it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but
Yeah.
Those are some of the steps that helped me like get into that realm. So.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And now you're currently working in the NBA, the Cavs. And something that I'm really interested in seeing is as you look at different like GMs and managers and team owners around the NBA, what have you seen as in how diverse it is? Whether it's like mostly white males or we see like different players like Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Dwayne Wade, all these African Americans like making a change to like increase the diversity, you know, and having people of minority races being owners. So like, could you give us a little take on what you've seen in that?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just not a lot of. I think the percentage of I think like 79% of the league is black, right?
Yeah.
Took care of like tech or whatever. But like I was really like the only black person on the team. And even when I transitioned down here to Cleveland full time, like for instance, like I'm part of the leadership group of our marketing team.
Yeah.
I'm the only black person of color on the leadership team for a marketing section of an NBA team of a 79% black org. You know what I mean? Like, and before me, it was nobody.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like, it's definitely interesting. And I think it also shows with a lot of the content and a lot of the stuff you see out there. Like, so for instance, like a lot of like the BLM stuff, right? Like you see who's aware of it, who knows their place, and who doesn't.
Yeah.
And like one thing that I did, for example, like for Juneteenth, and I found this so funny. For Juneteenth, obviously, like with everything with George Floyd and everything, the celebration of that holiday definitely got amplified, especially through COVID, and you know, it just got amplified.
Yeah, exactly.
And so one of the things that teams usually all they do is like when it's a holiday, they'll post a graphic or a motion graphic like, oh, Merry Christmas, oh, Happy New Year, oh, Happy Thanksgiving. But for Juneteenth, I was like, nah, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna post Happy Juneteenth, but we're also gonna explain what this holiday is and where it came from.
Yeah.
Because as a black male, I know most of my audience, especially in Cleveland and the greater Ohio area, are white people. I know that for a fact. So my thing is, I'm gonna inform people what this holiday is. I know people are gonna be ignorant, but I'm still gonna do it.
Yeah.
And literally, I kid you not, we were one of the first team, if not the first team, to send that out and explain what the holiday is. Every other NBA team did exactly what we did. Almost every NBA team and explained what the holiday was.
Wow.
No one ever had did that.
Yeah.
Everybody like followed our lead and explained what the holiday was. That was not a thing. And so like if I wasn't there, a black male who knows what Juneteenth is and how the significance of that, it would have just been a regular old Happy Juneteenth. So those are the things that you kind of notice, right? Like even when I'm talking to players, or like when it's certain cultural references that you see, the white people don't know what that is. They straight up just don't know what that is. But like me as a black male, being in this industry, being in content, being in culture, because all this stuff stems from black culture, you know what I'm saying? All this basketball, music, fashion, it all comes from black culture. But you have all these white people running with it. But us, me at the head of it being black, it's you know, it's genuine. It's you know what I mean? It's actually coming from the place of knowing what we're talking about. So that's just one of the things that I've noticed. Like it's definitely not a lot of black people. It's really sad. But I think that's, you know, I mean that's really corporate America.
Yeah.
Just not having a lot of people of color at all. Like literally, I could probably count all the black people in our org like that are like behind the scenes. I could probably count everybody probably in two hands. It's really not that many of us.
That is crazy to think about.
Yeah, and it's like that for
every team,
especially like small markets like us, us, Milwaukee, like they're completely whitewashed. You know what I mean? So it's definitely definitely something interesting I deal with at work. But since I know, like, I'm one of the very few, if not only, black heads of a digital arm, that's how I know, like, my stuff is genuine, my stuff connects really, because I actually get it, because I'm in the culture, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And then I guess for a little last question, this is something that's kind of, it's on topic in the sports industry, but like a little fun story, if you don't mind sharing. I see on Instagram that picture of you was at 2020 All-Star Weekend of you next to Quavo, was that 2 Chainz, Spike Lee. Can you share with us this experience of this picture, and I guess like its meaning to you and those that you're around, those black leaders in the black community?
Yeah, so it's funny because that was like the All-Star before COVID, before everything, and like that picture was like everywhere.
Yeah.
And like mad of my friends are sending it to me, and like I didn't even know. I like didn't know it's like mad people sent it to me.
Yeah.
Because like I always wore that orange beanie, and everybody was looking at me like, yo, like I know that orange beanie.
Yeah.
So I went to All Star with like the ownership group, because I still have connection with the ownership group. And obviously they're owners, so I got to like sit on the floor. I got like really good seats, whatever. And and honestly, bro, it was one of those things. It was like right place, right time. The game was going like sudden death, and like the dude snapped that photo, and bro, like I don't know how, but like I just happened, because I was sitting right there, like I was sitting behind actually like Chance the Rapper and his brother.
Wow.
I was sitting behind them.
Yeah.
To the left was Offset, Cardi B, and Quavo, and then Spike Lee, and then J. Cole was like a little bit farther down.
Wow.
So it was really like one of the things, man. Like honestly, I'm just blessed, bro. Like I don't know if you remember, but during one of our Cavs games, Serge Ibaka fought one of our players, Marquise Chris. Actually fought. It was like one of the first fist fights in a long time in the NBA.
Wow.
And it was at home, and you can Google it too, and I can send it to you too. And I was right under the basket, and they caught my face, and my face was like I was just in disbelief, and I was a meme. I was a meme everywhere. Like Isaiah Thomas and David Griffin were talking about like NBA TV.
Yeah.
They were talking about me like on ESPN. It was crazy, bro. So like, I've always just happened to just be in the right place at the right time, and I'm just very expressive of my emotions.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, man, honestly, at the end of the day, bro, it's just being blessed and just being grateful for these opportunities and these connections I have to put me in these places, to be around these people.
Yes, sir. We love to hear that. Hey, man, I appreciate you taking the time to hop on this call with me and just, like, discuss some things. That's all I had to ask, but I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no problem, bro.
In order for the sports industry to truly become diverse in sports management leadership positions, they must work hard for such equality. Moving forward, I think that all organizations and teams across the sports industry should be implicating rules such as the Judy Sweet Rule. Now, this rule is a requirement implicated by the NCAA headquarters that requires D1 universities to conduct interviews for people of color for executive admin positions. Instating such types of rules into sports industry league rules will ensure that there is equality and fairness in the interview process for leadership positions, thus resulting in more diversity and inclusion of racial minority people in the roles of leaders and managers in the sports industry.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Open Court with Ian Ocheng. We hope that you were able to learn something of value and understand that you can make a difference in the sports industry. Otherwise, we hope that you continue to stay safe and keep balling out. See you on the next one.